Hey, good morning. Granny gear here for Old Guy on a Bike. Road bike tires, they just keep getting bigger and bigger, don't they? Seems like every time we turn around, they've grown a little bit. Even the pros are running 30s. My goodness, what is up with that? Will this trend continue? Well, I mean, if a 30 is good, let's go to a 32. Let's go to a 34, 35, 36, 38. When will it end? I mean, at some point, are we going to be riding the equivalent of this? And I had to ask myself, if road bike tires do get bigger, well, what's in it for me? Well, I had some preconceived notions how I thought going to an even bigger road bike tire would be, and I went out and I found out, and that's what this video is all about. Stay tuned. Now, I've been already running a big road tire. I'm a fan. I'm running 30 millimeter Specialized Turbo S's. They measure 32 on a wide internal rim, tubeless at 60 pounds. My friends, it is a dream. However, I was curious because you know how we are always pushing the boundaries and people are saying, well, you know, if 30 is really good and really fast and comfortable, then a 32 or a 34 or a 36 or a 38, well, wouldn't that just be better and better? Well, I'm not absolutely so sure. And so I was curious. I was curious to see how it would be to try a Max Biggie road tire on my Time ADHX. And that's exactly what I did. I reached out to Wilderness Trail Bikes. They make a line of what they call adventure road tires. Now, they're not chasing the Continental GP5000 with this line of tires. And you'll hear me in the video clips coming up saying this isn't a performance road tire that I'm trying. And that's true. But neither is it a dog either. So this is part of their exposure line. This is a Exposure 36. You can see it's a pretty slick road tire. It's got a decent casing. It's their SG2, so it's a protected casing. It's got a little belt in it for anti-cut. It's not a real expensive tire. It's not a racing tire. It's the kind of tire you would put on your bike and just use on a daily basis, especially if you wanted to be able to go into maybe some rougher conditions, bad roads, little dirt here and there. This tire would take it just fine. Not a dog of a tire, not a heavy commuter e-bike tire. So keep that in mind when I say it's not a performance tire. I'm not saying that that it's a slow tire. I'm just saying it isn't a racing tire. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think anybody makes right now a 36 or 38 millimeter racing road tire. But that might be to come. So I reached out to WTB and I said, listen, I want to try this. I want to try putting a bigger road tire on my road bike because I'm curious and I think I know how this is going to turn out. But, you know, I've been wrong before. And they were generous enough to send me a couple of those 36 millimeter exposures. I put them on the Time. I took my 30s off, put these on, mounted them up. These things measured out to 38 millimeters. And I put a little bit of air in them, you know, sealant and all of that. And I took it out on the club road ride, which is usually 30-ish miles, pace 16 to 23 miles an hour, depending on what we're doing. Not fast, but we're not exactly hanging out. And occasionally on the hills, we try and rip each other's old legs off. Had a little bit of everything in this ride, just a mix of a typical kind of a country ride. So it gave me a really good feel of how this was. Now in these video clips, they're kind of raw in the sense that I'm just reacting to what I'm experiencing. This isn't scientific. I'm not trying to prove that a 38 is just as fast as a 30 or whatnot. It's not that. I just wanted to ride it and see what it was like because I thought I knew what was going to happen. Well, turns out I was right. However, we'll get to that in a minute. So I just went out and experienced it. I just talked to the camera based on how I was feeling. Now here's the thing. I will mention this real quick. I think when you make a change, like a tire or a wheel especially, your first impressions are the most accurate. Now, if you get your tire pressure wrong or something, like I had to blip my pressure during the ride, that was giving me a false impression. Got that figured out. But that first one or two rides, because that's when you're so used to what you've been riding that the changes are more apparent. 6 rides later, you know what happens? Well, it just all feels normal. It's a little bit hard to tell anymore, unless you're like doing it scientifically with a stopwatch or a power meter. Well then, you know, but I'm not doing that. I just wanted to go ride it and see if I liked it better or worse and why. All right, let's get to the video and then I'll get you back on the front porch here and we'll talk about, well, who is this for and is it for this old granny gear guy?
And then
Okay, day one on some very, very poofy road tires with the group. Here's the tires. Definitely fat, but will I be happy? And here's the group. Good morning, group. So they measure 38 millimeters wide. It's a 36 millimeter tire on the label, but on a 25 millimeter rim, they're poofy, and at 47 rear, 46 front, I would have guessed 50, but Silka calculator said 47, 46. So that's what I'm trying, and they feel good. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see how it works out. Maybe it'll be amazing. Maybe it won't be. I'll let you know.
Wipe the sleep from your eyes. Quit dreaming now.
Well, interesting. My impression is I can feel it in the acceleration. I'm used to this bike ride. I do this ride area all the time, and getting it going definitely is taking extra effort over the 30s I was running.
We'll be 1,000 miles away. Once heard it said in a song, best keep to traveling on.
It's kind of interesting just rolling along. I do feel like I'm working harder. I could be in my mind, but keep in mind these tires are not really rated as a performance tire in that sense. They're not dogs. They're not like some heavy commuter tire. So what I'm feeling could be in my mind. I don't think so. Just feels like I'm definitely putting out more power. I can't prove that for the same speed. That said, they're not slow in that way. So interesting. You know, there are reasons why road bike tires aren't 38 millimeters wide. You know what I'm saying?
Deep into town. Another night of setting up and breaking down.
All right, we're waiting for the group to catch up. We got split at a traffic light. So interesting, it felt like I was riding pretty firmly. And I think maybe that pressure was a little high. I did a double blip on each end, and now it feels more like I'd expect it to feel, more like what it feels like normally with my 30 millimeter tires at 60 pounds. So we'll see. I'm gonna guess I'd drop to 45-ish or so maybe. And it doesn't feel any slower. The thing is, it rolls along actually really well, and I can see why you'd want this, especially if your roads are crap. I want to try and get it onto some fast descending and see how that feels. Oh, that was the call to roll. Catch you in a little bit.
If you start to yawn, just keep to traveling on. Can barely stand on 2 feet. Callous fingers
okay,
tap my weekend
a little bit of country road there up to this little bit of a open space parkland area. That was about a zone 3 effort. I was running about 145 heart rate or so. Working hard, but not all out. And you know what? Here's the thing with these so far. They don't feel slow. I don't feel like I'm really working that hard, but I can't shake the fact that they just don't have the zip my other wheels and tires are. Now, is it the weight? Could be, probably a little bit. Is it the size into the air? Well, I'm not moving very fast, but yeah, maybe. Is it the casing, the rubber? Because, you know, it's probably a little bit of all three.
They've been there all along. Keep to traveling on.
Well, that was kind of interesting. A little bit of downhill. Wasn't going fast, maybe 25, 30 at the most, probably 25. And the tire comes off center, feels pretty normal. And then all of a sudden, it feels like it kind of hesitates and doesn't want to keep turning over, as far as leaning over, I mean, without a little extra effort. On my normal tires, it's linear all the way over. There's no change in how much it takes to get the bike to lean over through a corner. So it's definitely more effort to get it to corner and turn, but I'm not surprised considering it's a bigger tire. And bigger tires, they change things. Well, that was interesting. So that was about it's gonna be about a 30-mile ride. And honestly, that ride had everything in it except for really, really bad roads that I'd need to do to kind of like get a feel for something. Remember I said I had preconceived notions? And I was curious to see if this tire size would challenge those? No, it didn't. Pretty much affirmed everything I thought. And I'm gonna wrap that up on the front porch studio. See you there. But first, we need to get to coffee. It's a beautiful day. Yes, it is.
Best keep traveling on.
Now, at the beginning of the video, I said I had some preconceived notions. In other words, I had some things in my head where I'm thinking, this is how this is going to turn out, running these 38s. Well, let's see how close I was to reality. The first preconceived notion that I had was that these tires would take more effort to get them up to speed, to accelerate them, to deal with, changes in the pace of the group, just to get myself going. And you know what? It really, really did. Now, I can't put a number on it, but it's a bike I know really well. It's rides I know really well. It's the same pace. It's the same old granny gear. And it was just obvious to me that I was working harder to get that bike up to speed and to accelerate it. Now, keep in mind that these 38s were 90 to 100 grams heavier each tire than the 30s that they replaced. Well, that has to matter, doesn't it? Now, after this ride, I came home and changed the tires back to the 30s. About 2 days later, I went for a ride on that bike, started off on the same route. And you know what? I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's the Time ADHX that I remember. It was just a remarkable difference. So, first preconceived notion, check that box. The second preconceived notion was that once I got the tires rolling, they would actually roll along pretty well. Well, that is what happened. Once I got it up to speed, I didn't feel like I was working terribly hard to keep them going. Now, as I'm sure in some aerodynamic sense, if I kept going faster and faster into the wind, I'm paying a penalty, but I don't think I could sense that. Honestly, they felt just fine doing that. So, second preconceived notion, check that box. The third preconceived notion was that it would affect the handling of bike. As you put a bigger tire on a bike, you raise it further off the ground, don't you? And that increases the trail, because the trail number, you can look that up, ask your mom. It's a combination of a line drawn through the head tube angle and the fork offset where it meets the ground and all of that. And as you raise the bike up, you increase the trail. If the trail number goes up, your bike feels more stable. Well, the ADHX is already stable enough. I don't want it more stabler. As well, it just didn't feel as fun to ride as far as getting into and out of a sweeper or a corner. And while I would have tuned into that over time, why bother? Now, the last preconceived notion I had was that it would ride even more comfortably than my 30s did. But you know, it really didn't. Now, I could have probably played with tire pressures a little bit, but honestly, I don't think it's so much that the 38s weren't really, really good in this regard, because they were. It's just that the 30/measured 32 is so good. It's such a nice balance for me all around that I just don't think this was an improvement in a particular way. Now, it's a bigger tire, that 38. If I was on bombed out roads or dirt or in really nasty places, of course, I can drop the pressure further on a bigger tire and still live through it than I can with a smaller tire. But that isn't really my experience, and I'm using this, in a sense, evaluating it for pure road. And so really that isn't that important to me, but it might be for you, which is the strongest consideration really to run this big a tire, is to be able to take it into really rough places and come out happier than you would be with a smaller tire. At the beginning of this video, I asked myself the question, what's in it for me? Coming from a pure road riding experience and being very, very happy with the tire combination I'm using, would the 38s sway me over to, well, really, really bigger, poofy road tires? Well, in the end, the answer to that question, what's in it for me? Well, nothing really. And that's where I leave it. You guys have a great week and or weekend, and as always, you go ride your bikes.